Guys, welcome back. Today's video, honestly, it's gonna take a little bit, so you're gonna have to bear with me. Go get a snack, make some popcorn, get a drink, and then come back because we're in it for the long haul today. Today I'm gonna be tier ranking every single book that I read in 2023. I think it's every single book. I probably forgot like 10. I try to keep it all sorted by using Goodreads, but my Goodreads has been really glitchy in the past week, so I probably missed a few, but majority of them are in here. This is what we're working with. Oh my god. Oh my god. That's so many. I pulled out all of the physical ones that I read off my bookshelf to kind of set them up and get a visual of everything that I've read. That is crazy. That's just the physical ones that I've read this year. The first tier that we're working with today is Would Sell My Soul to Read This for the First Time Again. So any book that is like a 6 out of 5 star read for me, no notes, no flaws, perfect read, 10 out of 10 recommend. When I die, bury me with these books, okay? Second, kind of a step down from that, obviously, 4.5 to 5 star reads, just a good ass book. These books didn't necessarily take a part of my soul when I finished them, and they may not be absolute perfection, but they were close to perfect for me, and I just had a good time reading them. The third one is Crack. Any book that may not even have been a good book, but I binged the shit out of it. Like, I couldn't put it down. It was so addicting. The writing may not be amazing. It may be a subpar book also. Most people may hate the books that I put in here or not enjoy them because they're lacking, like, I don't know, character development. They may be lacking storyline. They may be lacking plot. I don't give a shit. I overlooked every flaw while reading these books because I didn't care. They were just addicting. The fourth one we have is Emotional Damage. There was about like 4 books this year that really emotionally wrecked me, so I went ahead and made a tier for it so you can know what books to read if you want a good cry, or what books to avoid so you don't have a good cry or bad cry or whatever. Fun reads, but you won't miss anything if you skip them. These are books that, I mean, they were all right. They weren't anything revolutionary. They weren't even addicting, but I finished them and I had like an all right time while reading them. And then lastly, Finished But Not For Me. I DNF'd about 15 books this year. I didn't include any of the books that I DNF'd, but the ones that are going to go in the Finished But Not For Me are books that I probably should have DNF'd, not because they're bad books necessarily, but just because they didn't work for me, and me and the book just were not vibing. Survive the Night by Riley Sager. Fun read, but you won't miss anything. That's a thriller. It's all right. It was not super thrillery. It was pretty chill, but you won't miss anything. What does that say? Ruined Secrets. Okay, I'm putting this in Crack, and honestly, I'm putting this entire series in Crack. I think I read 5 of them. There's more on here. Where are they? This is just a fun mafia series. It's called the Perfectly Imperfect series, and it's just no brain cells, just vibes. Each book has like a different trope. I don't know which book has which characters in it. Couldn't tell you. Honestly, couldn't tell you really anything about the series other than the fact that I binged like 5 books in a weekend. They're like less than 300 pages. Every single book is. And I read the first 5. I think there's a total of 8 of them in the series. But these 5, they were fun. Runaway Love by Melanie Harlow. 4.5 to 5 star read. I really enjoyed that. That's my favorite book out of that interconnected series. It's a single dad and she's the nanny. It kind of gave me Heartless by Elsie Silver vibes. Not as good as Heartless in my opinion, but it was still a really good read. And then the other books in that series, let's go ahead and grab those. Hideaway Heart by Melanie Harlow. Finished But Not For Me. That's a bodyguard romance, second book that comes after Runaway Love. And honestly, I didn't like it. I wanted to like it really bad, but I just didn't. And Make Believe Match, the third one in that series, I'm gonna put that in fun reads, but you won't miss anything. It wasn't necessarily insta-lovey. It's a marriage of convenience book, but they got together so fast. And so I felt like there was no tension throughout the book, and I live for tension. So because there was none, it was just an all right read to me. Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. Would sell my soul to read this for the first time again. Bury me with that book. I'm not even kidding. One of the best books I've read this year. Caught Up by Liz Tomford. Ooh, this is between Crack and fun reads, but you won't miss anything if you skip them. Oh, that's me being a little bit harsh. The one thing I really liked about Caught Up was the love confession from Kai, but other than that, I found it really repetitive. Whatever. I'm gonna put it there. Because the other books in the series, if I can find them, Mile High, I think I'm gonna put Mile High. Mile High is also in between, because my issue with Mile High, it was a great book, but I found it very long. I'm gonna put it in crack though, because I did read that very fast. Mile High was about 150, 200 pages longer than it needed to be. However, The Right Move, which is down here, would sell my soul for this book. Would sell my soul for a Ryan Shea. Am holding out in real life for a Ryan Shea, because Ryan Shea, the MMC in that book, perfect. Absolute perfection. Take a Hint, Danny Brown. Crack. I listened to the audiobook of that. It was great. Act Your Age, Eve Brown. This is the third book in that series. That's a 4.5, 5-star read for me. That was a good ass book. That was my favorite out of the Brown Sisters series, the first being Get a Life, Chloe Brown, which was also crack. Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Would sell my soul to read this book for the first time again. I have an addiction to that book. I think I have an emotional attachment to it. I don't know. I'm trying to think back, honestly, to the first time I ever read it, and I'm trying to think of if there was anything hard going on in my life, because it's like I developed a weird attachment to that book. And I love it so very much. Hellbent, the second book in that series, came out in January, and that one's a 4.5, 5-star read. I think Hellbent, I would have probably put it in Would Sell My Soul for this book had it not been so fantasy. Like, I feel like it took a very fantasy direction or magical direction. If you've read the book, then I don't know how to make it make sense, but it was just very heavy on the fantasy in that book, which I was not expecting going into it. I liked it, but that made me knock it down to 4.5 stars. This series, it's based in Yale, dark academia. There's a little bit of fantasy elements in Ninth House, and then a lot of fantasy elements in Hellbent. A Little Life. Emotional damage. When people say this book just gets worse, they mean it. I didn't think they meant it. I thought they were kidding with me when everybody was saying, oh, it just gets worse. You think it can't, but it can. Yeah, I didn't believe anybody trust that they're telling the truth, and it just gets worse. And it is truly trauma porn and emotionally damaging. Amazing, but emotionally damaging. Hopeless by Elsie Silver. Listen, I saw someone post again the other day their red flags with this book. All valid. All valid. I don't care. I can't see them. I do not give a shit. There were a few in Hopeless, but I don't care. Powerless, also a good ass book. Reckless, which is somewhere in here, would sell my soul to read that one for the first time again. Reckless and Heartless, my favorite in this series, and this series by Elsie Silver is my favorite small town series ever. Holiday Romance by Catherine Walsh. That, you know, that was crack. And then Snowed In, the second book in that series, that's a good ass book. I was shocked with how much I liked Snowed In. It is truly my favorite holiday wintry romance. Both Holiday Romance and Snowed In are set in Ireland. Perfect setting, perfect characters. The plots were good in both of them, but in Snowed In, it was like absolutely iconic. Taste by Melanie Harlow. Fun read, but you won't miss anything. Oh my gosh, I do remember the trope that was in this book, or one of the tropes, I was truly not expecting. And it came out of left field because I didn't read the back of the book, and I was like, what the fuck? And then Ignite, the first book in that series, I'm gonna put that in crack. That's a single dad neighbor romance, and it was addicting. I binge read that book. That Kind of Guy, I don't know the name of this series, but I'm gonna put all of the books that I read in crack. I don't remember the series name for That Kind of Guy, In Your Dreams, Holden Rhodes, and The Wrong Mr. Right. There is a fourth book in this series, but I haven't read it yet. They're small town romances, but it's based in a coastal town, and I really liked that vibe. They were all just really fun, mindless reads. Set the Record Straight. I actually finished this book yesterday. It's a novella. I'm putting it in fun reads, but you won't miss anything if you skip it, simply because it's only 160 pages. You really won't miss anything if you don't read it. It's just fluffy, and if you want to read a book for the holidays, I do recommend it. And it was fun, but it's nothing crazy because there's no conflict in it and really no major plot because it's a novella. It's just straight to the point and pretty chill. The Tryst by Lauren Blakely. The MMC in this book was her ex-boyfriend's dad. And then The Tease by Lauren Blakely, that was, the MMC was her dad's best friend. I think I'm gonna put The Tease in crack. I loved the tease. That was fun. The tryst was good, or there was a little bit of verbiage in the tryst that wasn't necessarily cringy, but well, maybe it was a little cringy. Just a little bit of it. A little too much so to where I'm gonna put it there, but the tease was good. Priest by Sierra Simone. I wanted to like it so bad, but I couldn't. I just didn't. I think when I also read it, I was not in the mood for anything like spice. And I'm not a big spice, no plot girly. Like, I need a little bit of plot. And there was, in my opinion, if there was a plot, I couldn't see it. Reckless by Aurora Rose Reynolds. I'm gonna go ahead and put all 3 of her books in fun, but you won't really miss anything if you skip them. They're small town romances, basically just straight people U-hauling. Free on Kindle Unlimited, and the audiobooks are also free on Kindle Unlimited. I listen to the audiobooks. And they have a male and a female narrator, and the guy has like a little country twang, and I did really like that. I did really like that, but they're nothing crazy. They're also very short reads too. Ever Mine by Laura Pavlov. I did read the first 3 books in this small town interconnected series by Laura Pavlov. Ever Mine, Always Mine, and Make You Mine. They were just small town romance books. They were just kind of average in my opinion. Ice Planet Barbarians. Crack, and I'm gonna put Barbarian Mine in crack, Barbarian Lover, and Barbarian Alien. I'm gonna put those there. I don't even remember what or who those 2 are about. You know what? I kind of want to move these to crack as well, but I'm just gonna leave them there. They're all crack. The thing with like these big blue guys is you can only read a few books and then you need to take a break and then you come back around to them. No brain cells, just vibes. There Is No Devil by Sophie Lark. The first book is There Are No Saints, and that one was a good ass book. I loved that. I am gonna put There's No Devil in crack because I do think you need to read it if you read the first one, but in my opinion, There's No Devil, it was like a 3.25, 3.5 star read for me, whereas There's No Saints was a 5-star read for me. Didn't necessarily love it, but it was crack. Like, I read it really quick. Keeping 13 and Binding 13, Emotional Damage. Where's Binding 13? There it is. Ooh. Emotional Damage. I read those back in July and they were emotionally damaging. The Fine Print. And also Terms and Conditions is gonna go in there as well. However, Final Offer is gonna go over here. These books are in the Dreamland Billionaire series. I didn't necessarily love the first 2. I think the first one was the first one fake dating? I don't remember the trope in the first one. Second one was Marriage of Convenience, and the third one was Second Chance Romance. Loved Final Offer for some reason, even though a lot of people tend to love the first 2 and not like the last one because Final Offer is like absurdly long, but I loved it. Then She Was Gone. Crack. This is more of a mystery than a thriller. That's what I really like about Lisa Joel's books, is they're more mystery than thriller. The premise of this book though was kind of fucked, and every little twist and turn in the book, you're just kind of like queasy because you're like, oh, please don't do that. Like, don't be so fucked in the head and do that. And then they are fucked in the head and they do that. The Mindfuck series. Would sell my soul to read this for the first time again. Serial killer dating an FBI agent. Come on. How much more iconic than that does it get? The Wicked King. That's a second book in the Cruel Prince series. I'm gonna go ahead and move the Cruel Prince up there, and the Queen of Nothing. For the Queen of Nothing, I'm gonna put that in a good ass book. That was my favorite out of all of them. And then the Wicked King and the Cruel Prince, I'm gonna put those there. The thing about this fantasy series is it's way more political fantasy, like YA political fantasy, and I think a lot of people don't know that going into it. So if you're thinking about reading it, know that information. There's a lot of like fantasy politics, but I liked it. The Cheat Sheet. I did not like this book. I didn't like this book. It also freaked me out because the FMC is the guy's girl best friend who every time he dated someone, he'd always be like, oh, don't worry about her, that's just my best friend. Stop! Say You Swear. No words. Fourth Wing. I'm not planning to read Iron Flame, but I did read Fourth Wing back in June, and I liked it. I thought it was fun. Self-Love for Small Town Girls. This is just a little poetry book. I'm gonna put it in 4.5 5-star read. It's just poetry. Poetry that I related to a little too much. Darling Venom by Parker S. Huntington. Emotional damage, man. I didn't check the trigger warnings before going into that book. I 10 out of 10 recommend that you do check the trigger warnings before going into this book. I was like gut-wrenched. It had me crying. I was like, what the fuck? Why did it take this direction? Now I'm really sad. And when you're reading the first few chapters, you can kind of tell what direction it's going to take. But I was like, surely she's not going to do that to us. She is. Blood Bonds. I read all 6 books in the Bonds That Tie series. I think I only put 5 of them on here though. Oh man. Okay, I don't know which one I'm missing. I am gonna put the first one in Crack. And I don't know the name of the second one, so we are gonna pretend Forced Bonds is the second one. Loved the first 2. And then after that, the last 4, they were just incredibly repetitive and alright. Like, I had fun reading them, but it wasn't anything crazy. They were just alright. Black Ties, White Lies. Listen, I loved the first 2/3 of this book. The last third of it, I was skimming a little bit too much of it. The MMC in this book is her ex-boyfriend's brother, who wants to speak to her so badly, but she won't answer the phone, respond to his messages. So he buys the company that she works at so that she has to speak to him. Until I Get You. It's a dark romance, check trigger warnings. That was a good book. The girl kind of has to like run away to save him and to make sure he doesn't get hurt. So she like changes her identity or like changes her name so he can't find her, and then he has to come find her. Travis. Finished but not for me. I'm surprised I finished that book. That was Travis, the guy from Archer's Voice, his redemption arc. I don't think he needed a redemption arc. Well, I think everybody deserves a redemption arc, okay? But I was very bored with this book, and I didn't necessarily think there was too big of a connection between him and the FMC in this book. It was just eh. A Very Grumpy Christmas. That is just a very average holiday read. The 40-60 Rule. That was a fun book. Yes, Chef. He's a chef. Bunny by Mona Awad. Say what you want. Say what you want. A lot of people don't like it. I loved it. Weird, dark academia. Think the girl was schizophrenic. I don't know. Or she's just a very unreliable narrator. Tender as the Flesh. Also devoured it. You know what? While we're talking about Tender as the Flesh, we're going to go ahead and put A Certain Hunger up here right next to it. Both of these books are about cannibalism. If you have a queasy stomach or you're really sensitive to like stuff like that, they are very detailed. Read with caution. I thought they were incredible. Tender as the Flesh was a little bit of dystopian with cannibalism intertwined. Like, it was fucked. It was crazy. And then A Certain Hunger, the girl was just a cannibal and a chef. And her favorite liver was, well, not animal liver, from a human. Keep Her Safe. Crack. Bodyguard romance, age gap. Crack. Plays Well with Others. This is also by Lauren Blakely, the author who wrote The Tryst and The Tease. I didn't necessarily love this one because I felt like the verbiage in this one was also a little bit cringy, so it didn't quite work for me. Wildfire by Hannah Grace. Okay, the only reason why I didn't love this, the camp setting. Most of you guys already know that. I liked the characters, but I was really missing the found family that we saw in Icebreaker because they were at the camp setting. So it was just all right to me. But I do think I'm gonna love the rest of the series as soon as we get back to the college setting where everybody is. Twisted Games. I would sell my soul to read this for the first time again. Say what you want. Say what you want. I love this book. This was a reread. First book I read this year. The Secret History. I like that book. I actually really want to do a reread of it this year. Dark academia, rich kids, and a poor kid having really weird philosophical pursuits, and a murder happens in it, and very much dark academia vibes. Hooked. Captain Hook didn't know he was a drug dealer, didn't know the Pixie reference was cocaine, because I'm an idiot. And then by the end I was like, oh my god, he's a drug dealer. That's cocaine, or the equivalent of it, not like pixie dust. The Locked Door by Frida McFadden. This was one of the only thrillers I read this year. I also read The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. We'll go ahead and put it there. Both of these about gave me a heart attack. The Locked Door was more frightening than The Housemaid in my opinion. I listened to the audiobook of it when I was driving to Florida this past summer. I had to pull over multiple times and like control my breathing. It was so intense. Our Scorching Summer. Crack. That's a perfect read for the summer. Friends to Lovers, setting is summer. Add that to your TBR, summer 2024. The Red Zone. This one and the Fantasy League, they were just fun, mindless, like sports romance reads. Couldn't tell you anything about them except for the girl in the Fantasy League was this grumpy football player's private chef, and she thought he hated her, but he actually was like in love with her and just didn't know how to talk to her. And then she quits and he's like, I think she quits. And he's like, no. Icebreaker. I love Icebreaker. That was a book that I reread this year as well. I read that back in January with my book club.
and I love it. I love the found family in it. I just think it's really fun. Fixer Up. The FMC's a clown. You're not missing much. Following Fox. I liked that book. That one, and then Picking Peaches is the first one. They're both under 300 pages, straight to the point, easy, mindless, like small town reads. Picking Peaches ended very abruptly, but other than that, that one was a great read. Following Fox, they were like neighbors, old childhood kind of friends, where they like knew each other in childhood. And he was a chef. He owned a little restaurant, like a little diner. That was cute. The Ex-Hex. It was all right. She puts a hex on her ex and it goes terribly wrong. Happy Place. You know what? Let's go ahead and put Beach Read up here as well. If there's one thing I am, it's an Emily Henry stan. Give me her grocery list. And I'll probably put it and would sell my soul to read this for the first time again. What Saves Us? Loved that book. Loved that book. Loved it. I love this book so much, mostly because of the postpartum depression, like representation that was in it. The Reaper. That is the second book in, I don't know the name of this series, but I read the first one, The Predator, The Reaper, and then I also read, where's the other one? The Emperor. The Emperor was my favorite. I'm gonna put Emperor up here. Loved that one. These two were just crack. The Predator and The Reaper were about the same FMC and MMC, like followed them in both books. And then The Emperor, it followed different characters. They're mafia romances. And honestly, that's all you need to know. The Maddest Obsession. I'm gonna put that in crack. That one, and then the first one, The Sweetest Oblivion, those are also mafia romances. I don't know if there's any other books in this interconnected series out. I don't remember much other than The Maddest Obsession. He was like some Russian man who was obsessed with her. Like, needed psychological help, obsessed with her. Okay, and where's the issue? To Sir with Love. That was a good book. Didn't expect to like it. If Amina wouldn't have recommended it to me, I don't know if I would have read it. It's kind of based in New York City. It gave me very much rom-com movie vibes while reading it. Court of Wings and Ruin, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and A Court of Mist and Fury. I don't necessarily love the first one, but I'm gonna put it in crack. And then these two, I'm just gonna move them up here because I did really enjoy reading this. I think I read them in April. And I also read House of Sky and Breath in January of this year. A Soul to Keep. I didn't like this one. This was a monster romance, and I really thought I was gonna like it because I read another monster romance sometime this year, and honestly, is it even on here? Oh, it is. Her Soul to Take. Loved Her Soul to Take. I'm actually gonna move Her Soul to Take into 4.5 to 5-star read. That was a good ass book. So I read this monster romance, and then I was like kind of on a roll, so I went to A Soul to Keep. Didn't like that. Loved Her Soul to Take. Her Soul to Take, the vibes of the town that it was set in gave me very much like Vampire Diaries or the originals vibes. Marrow by Trisha Wolfe. I think this is about 2 serial killers. Crack. Loved it. Love any book about a serial killer. The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. Just a very good cozy read. Perfect read for October, witchy season. It was just really good. The Last Word. Finished, but not for me. I didn't like this book. It was a thriller and did not love it. Royal Holiday. It was all right. The more I think about this book, the more like bland and boring I think it is. The Bronze Horseman. The only historical romance that I read this year, expected to hate it, absolutely devoured it. It is like 800 pages. Worth it. Also, there's a love triangle in it, and worth it. I read 4 books in the Addicted series this year. Thrive, didn't really enjoy because it's the same timeline as I think Hot House Flower and Kiss the Sky, but Lillian Lowe's POV, and I didn't necessarily need that, and I didn't care for it. Hot House Flower, I enjoyed it. Kiss the Sky, I love that book so much because Rose and Connor are my favorite out of everybody. Rose and I have the same birthday. I love them with my entire heart. Addicted, for now, I'm putting it next to Thrive. Big Nick Energy. Crack. That was such a fun holiday romance. Vicious by LJ Shin. I read Vicious, and then I also read Ruckus this year. I think LJ Shin has better books. They were all right. Here's the thing about normal people. You're either a normal people person or you're absolutely not. I am not, but I can totally see how so many people love normal people. So I'm putting it here, but don't come for me. It's just not my type of book. Again, you're either a normal people person or you're not. Sorry. Manhunt. This also didn't work for me. There's only so many times you can read about how small and dainty and frail the FMC is and how big this man is before you want to blow your brains out. How does it feel? Didn't love. Have a whole vlog about that. The more I think about the book and the ending of that book, the more like agitated I get. Only takeaway I have from that book was the girl likes moths, and now I have a new appreciation for moths. Charming Your Dad. Outrageously good. I might even move that to here. I loved this book. The MMC is her ex-boyfriend's dad. He's also a demon. The vibes in this also kind of similar to Her Soul to Take. Paranormal romance, incredible. Read it like right before Halloween. Had a blast. Next of Kin. I read Next of Kin, and I also read the other book in that series, Next to You. They were both really good. Just really good romances with really good characters in them, really wholesome characters in them. I just had a good time reading them. When Gracie Met the Grump. Here's the thing. I'm putting this in crack, but I have a few words I want to say. I originally DNF'd When Gracie Met the Grump last year because the beginning was so slow. If you've never read a Mariana Zapata book before, do not start with When Gracie Met the Grump. The thing about this book is I almost felt like she was testing our patience at the beginning of this because Mariana Zapata books very slow burn. It was outrageously slow burn at the beginning to where I genuinely feel like she was testing us. I DNF'd it because I was like, why is nothing happening? And then I came back to it and then it was great. It was fine. It was dandy. I ended up really liking it the second time around. The Stopover. That MMC in that book was the most whiny motherfucker I have ever read about. It was just a rich white man whining his ass off. I was like, shut the fuck up. Someone needs to put you in your place. Someone needs to yell at you. Stop it. You're embarrassing yourself. Things We Hide from the Light and Things We Left Behind. I didn't necessarily love these. The thing is, if I would have read these last year, they weren't out last year, but if I would have, with my reading taste last year, I would have devoured them, loved how long they were. But this year, they both weren't really working for me. Even though I really like Things We Never Got Over, that's one of my favorite books. These two didn't quite do it for me. I do want to reread Things We Left Behind and give it another chance. King of Battle and Blood. Bye. That's a fantasy book. Enemies to Lovers. Marriage of Convenience. It did not work for me. Crimson River. That was just so bland. That one and Jasper Vale, in my opinion, they just felt very like, meh. Daughter of No Worlds. Couldn't tell you anything about this book, other than the fact that it's fantasy and the girl spoke a couple languages. The Best Laid Plans. I really liked the first 2/3 of this book. The MMC gets his property left to him by his like best friends when they pass away. He's like, what the fuck do I do with this property? And they already had a designer for the property, so when he goes out there to like meet with the designer, that's the FMC, and then they have to like live in forced proximity and be in communication, and it was cute. The Happily Ever After playlist. The first 2/3 of this book, absolutely perfect. The last third of this book, skimmed it. It stressed me the fuck out for no reason. So I'm gonna put it here. But the first 2/3 of it, wonderful. The tension between the characters, the flirting with the characters, amazing. The last third, I was like, stop! Under Lock by Mariana Zapata. Also crack. Did I put Wait For It on here? Oh, I did. It's right there. Wait For It by Mariana Zapata over here. A good ass book. Let me tell you, a good ass book. Luna and the Lie, not a favorite, but a book that I want to reread, but it was also crack. Because I'm also a Mariana Zapata stan and a slow burn stan. Check and Mate. I wanted to like Check and Mate by Allie Hazelwood really bad, but I think I gave it like 3.25 stars, maybe 3.5. It was just very like meh to me. And I don't know if that's because it was YA and I just like wasn't vibing with it because of that. I really liked, was his name Nolan? I don't necessarily remember the MMC's name. I thought he was adorable, but there was a few different things that happened in the book where I was like, eh. Butcher and Blackbird. No, not crack. I'd sell my soul for this book, man. 2 serial killers killing serial killers. I'm gonna reread Butcher and Blackbird sometime early this year. It's so good. Oh, Hands Down by Mariana Zapata. I'm gonna put that there. Am I? I liked this book, but it's not a favorite of mine. That's one of my least favorites by her, but it's still good. Throne of Glass. I listened to the audiobook. When She Falls, Mafia Romance. You're not really missing anything if you read it. Same with the other one, When She Unravels. Both of these are a part of an interconnected like mafia series. I think there's 4 books total out. I ended up DNFing the second one because the age gap was fucking weird. It was just bad. These two, you know what? Whoa. Wait a minute. When she unravels, the first one, I'm actually moving that to crack because I just fully remembered the plot of that book, and it was very interesting. Like a girl running away from her family and she doesn't want to be found, but she ends up like going to work for like a mob boss. Morbidly Yours. The Brightest Light of Sunshine. Here's the thing. I think I actually rated The Brightest Light of Sunshine 5 stars when I read it. But I can't tell you anything about him. I can't even tell you the characters' names. All I can tell you is that he is a big burly tattoo guy and she's a ballerina and she teaches ballet to his little sister who he like takes care of a lot of the time. I can't, other than that, I don't know. I don't remember anything. Serpent and the Wings of Night. I really liked this fantasy book. I DNF'd the second one, but I did really enjoy the first one. It was giving like Hunger Games a little bit. Vampire Hunger Games. Is this about vampires? I can't even remember. Carrie Soto is Back. I really enjoyed this book. I read it in March and I listened to the audiobook. I think if I would have read it, I would have felt differently about it, but the audiobook, the narration was so amazing that it made me love it, and it also made me love tennis. A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon. The more I think about this book, the more like I'm like, meh, it was alright. I barely finished it. Black Sheep. This is also about a serial killer and a teacher. I liked it. Gave me mindfuck series vibes. Once Upon a Broken Heart. The thing about Once Upon a Broken Heart is I was kind of struggling with it the first half, and then I really loved the second half of it. So because I loved the second half of it so much, I'm gonna put it in crack, but I was really struggling the first half. And then I got over the hump and I was like, wait, I really like this. Curse of Ophelia. This is a fantasy book. I think there's 3 books in the series. When I read it, I wasn't in a fantasy mood, and that's my fault, so I can't give you I can't really say anything about it. I was not in a fantasy mood when I read it, I think in August. I probably shouldn't have read it, but. Sinful Vow, Mafia Romance. The thing I really liked about this though is the FMC was a badass and a killer, and like almost more badass than her husband, who was also pretty great. I did really like that about it. In a Jam. I binged that book in like 2 nights. My friend Houston gave me that recommendation. Small Town Romance. Did she leave someone at the altar or like break up with her fiance or something? Guys, I cannot remember. One Dark Window. That was a good ass book. We're gonna have to climb the ladder. That one and the second one, Two Twisted Crowns. Incredible. Gothic fantasy book. The only thing I can tell you about the setting is mist and trees, but I liked it a lot. The Plight Before Christmas. Crack. That was a really fun second chance romance. Also, incredible holiday vibes. Throttled by Lauren Asher. That's the only book that I read in this series. I didn't really get to the others. It was okay. It was very, not necessarily insta-lovey, but kind of insta-lovey. Like, it didn't really feel like there was a connection between the characters, but I had fun reading it. The Butcher and the Wren. This book is by the host of Morbid. It was okay. I listened to the audiobook. I really did enjoy the narration. It was a very like mild thriller. It was fun to listen to. Mary Inkmas. The more I think about this novella, the less I like it. I don't know. When I first finished it, I think I might have given it 3 stars, and that was a little generous. And then the more I think about it, I'm like, I just don't think it was for me. Faking Under the Mistletoe. Crack. That's another holiday romance. Loved it. I think a lot of people will be annoyed with the FMC in this book, but I loved her. Loved her. It Happened One Summer. Okay, everybody listen. What I'm gonna say about It Happened One Summer, I'm talking specifically about the audiobook, not the book. This was a reread, but I listened to the audiobook this time because I got it through my library. I read It Happened One Summer last year, loved it. The audiobook, didn't love it. I don't know how I finished it. The narrators, for me personally, I'm very picky about narrators with audiobooks because it's very easy for me to feel like it's cringy, and I didn't love the narration of it at all, and I was really struggling with it. But when I read it, I loved it. Illuminae. That was a really fun dystopian novel. There's 3 books in the series. I just got the second one, and I want to start it sometime like early this next year. It reads differently, and it's like published differently, and not like normal just words on the paper. It's like you're reading files and documents and someone's emails, and it was just fun. Alive and Wells. Guys, I just finished this book. It's a small town cowboy romance. Check the trigger warnings of it. This girl's running away from her abusive husband, and she ends up like on a ranch where she like got a job, and there's a scene in the end of it where the MMC is like beating up her ex. So that's all I'm gonna say. Between Love and Loathing, crack. Man, that one and the first one, Between Commitment and Betrayal, these are two books where I know they may not be the most well written. If anything, Between Commitment and Betrayal, the last third of it was so chaotic, and it was almost as if the author was just throwing out things to throw out things. I don't give a shit though, because it held my attention the whole time. I had so much fun. I didn't have to use one brain cell, and I was like jaw dropped the whole time. Are they perfect? No. Did I have fun and didn't think about my real life problems while reading them? Yes. Between Commitment and Betrayal is Marriage of Convenience, and then Between Love and Loathing is Fake Dating. My Dark Romeo. It was a good book. It was a good read. Marriage of Convenience. Kings of the Wild. I loved this book. This is just a fantasy book. No romance in it. About these old men who are kind of past their glory days that get their band back together to go find one of the band members' daughters. And they like have to get back almost in like fighting shape a little bit and like get themselves together. Because again, they're like old, drunk, and fat and way past their prime, and they have to like get their shit together. The Temporary Wife. Fun read. This book made me angry. So wildly angry because of the FMC's sister was such a fucking narcissist. I was screaming at my Kindle. Line to Promise. I listened to this audiobook. It was fun. Pregnancy trope. You know what? Crack. Hell. Pregnancy trope, but the MMC didn't know he had a kid, but he steps the fuck in without overstepping, and he becomes like a good dad who's like, let me provide, but also like, I'm not trying to overstep and like, tell me if I am. He was so perfect. Rewrite Our Story. I don't know what it was about that book, but I was not vibing with it. It just wasn't quite working for me. It was a small town romance, second chance romance. I should have liked it, but I just like didn't. Fear Me, Love Me. Nah. What is the breeding kink doing in anything other than Ice Planet Barbarians? What are we doing? That just doesn't work for me. All respect to you if it works for you, but it does not for me. Undertaking of Heart and Mercy. I'm gonna put it in fun reads, but you won't miss anything if you skip. I listened to the audiobook of it, and it was just very like all right. It was fantasy. Very mild on the fantasy though. Minx by Sophie Lark. I loved Minx by Sophie Lark. So good. She's an escort. He's like a wealthy businessman. She only takes 3 clients at a time, and he's like, I want to be your only client. And she's like, no, I don't do that. And he's like, let me be your only client. That was one of the spiciest reads that I've read this year. Powerless by Lauren Robert. Crack. This fantasy book had like every basic trope ever in it. And was it kind of basic? Yes. I don't give a shit though. You know what? I actually might. It's kind of going in between these two. I'm gonna put it here though. Like it was basic. I don't care though. I had so much fun. Peyton and Kai. Respect. Cannot wait for Reckless. I think it comes out in June. Amazing. The tension between the characters in that book, because it was YA, perfect. A Beautiful Surrender. That was crack. A spicy dystopian novel. It was just fun. Does It Hurt? That was fun. I actually might move that to crack. Dark romance. He like shoves her head in shark infested water at some point. Like, Jesus Christ, what are we doing, guys? What are we doing? All red flags. All red flags. Overlooked every single one of them because it was fun. They get like stranded. It was crazy. But it's by H.D. Carlton, so we expect nothing less. Alpha Inmate. Womp womp. Rootbound by Tara DeWitt. I did not like that book. I was not rooting for the characters. I didn't really care for the storyline. It was not working for me. Pen Pal, didn't know it was paranormal. I just thought she had a stalker trying to kill her. So that, no thanks. You Again, the more I think about this book, the more agitated I get. I wanted to like it so badly because it was a When Harry Met Sally retelling. It was not for me. A Very Merry Bromance. This could go in emotional damage, but I'm gonna put it in crack. It did make me tear up because the way the FMC's family was like so awful to her, I was like, no one deserves that. It just made me really sad, and I just felt really bad for her. The Silent Patient. Say what you want, but I liked The Silent Patient. It's more of a mystery, not really a thriller. I freaking liked it. I ate it up. Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. That was all right as well. It was a mystery thriller. I had fun reading it, and I think like by the end of it, thinking back over everything that I read, I liked the progression of it, even though it was kind of slow, and I liked the conflict and like what was discovered at the end. I thought that was crazy, but it was slow. Marriage for One. I kind of want to reread this book and give it another shot. It was a Marriage of Convenience book, but I just found it very like flat. Hooked on the Game by C.M. Owen. That's the same author as S.T. Abbey, who wrote the Mindfuck series, just a different pen name. It really wasn't that great, but I literally didn't have to use a single brain cell while reading it, so I don't care. Forced proximity between the two characters. He was obsessed with her. Grimstone by Sophie Lark. That is my least favorite book by Sophie Lark, and I don't know if my opinion of that will change come the second book in the series, like next October. But I didn't necessarily love this book. I wasn't like fully rooting for the characters, I think, and the more I think about it, like the less I like it. Done and Dusted. Devoured. Love this book. Small town romance, very short to the point, just an easy read. Brother's best friend is the trope. It was just good. Babel. Listen, Babel was great. I just finished that. Actually, that could either go in a good-ass book or I'm gonna put it in emotional damage. The ending was really sad. Swift and Saddled. Okay, I got my hands on Swift and Saddled, which is the second book in this interconnected series. It comes after Done and Dusted. Guys, I didn't like it. Like, I didn't... Like, it was just... Where'd it go? Oh. It was just very, like, meh to me, and I expected to love it so much, and it was just all right. Like I'm bordering putting it in finished, but not for me. I had an average amount of fun with it, and it might be right book, wrong time. I just didn't feel super connected to the characters. They were enjoyable, and you know what? I'm putting it here. I feel harsh, but that's okay, because it's just my opinion. Something was like missing, and those are all the books. Well, most of them. I'm not even kidding you. I think I forgot like 10, but that's okay. Those are pretty much all the books that I read in 2023. My reading goal this year was 100, and I surpassed that in like July, and I think I'm sitting at like 196, somewhere around there. My reading goal for this next year is like nowhere near that. We're bringing it back down to like 125, 150. I read a lot of good books. If you take any of these books and you read them, let me know your thoughts, and thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you next week.